Okay, welcome back to members of 121 Community Church in Grapevine, Texas, in our ongoing study in Rudolf Otto and Naturalism and Religion. We're going to take a look at Chapter 9, pages 220 to 278, and we are into that transitioning into the positive elements of Otto's position. We have passed out of negation, now we're into the affirmations of what makes up a Neo-Vitalistic theory. And he's going to tell us that we address the concept of purpose, we address the concept of energy, and then we can bring about Neo-Vitalistic theory. So let's begin with block 1. Let's take a look at the result of purpose. Otto tells us that mechanical theory is a rational hypothesis, and therefore it is subject to critique, beginning from the perspective of teleology. Otto says purpose and ideas are not causes, but instead results of organic life. They are that which we perceive when we look back and interpret in a retrospective way. Purpose is revealed at the close of a sequence. Ultimate result of a mechanical sequence can be either purpose or mere result. We want to posit the notion of purpose. So let's take a look at note 2. In purpose or mere result, God could work out his purposes according to strict, inviolable mechanism and not necessarily incommensurable vital force. Transformation could move simply from dunamis to energia in strict causality. Entirely rational, entirely comprehensive. Simply as a teleology of causality. That is one possibility. However, we are positing the notion of purpose. And that is because, if you look at note 3, because of the requirement of religious feeling. Religion posits a recognition of purpose, informing structured life with significance, with positing signs, by addressing the mysterion of life, the mystery of life, responding to the vital phenomena of existence. And that's how we begin. We begin by addressing the vital phenomena in note 4. If we're going to find and formulate a neo-vitalistic theory of organic life, we must address the vital phenomena. And Otto tells us the element of astonishing energy has been neglected by mechanical theory. The doctrine of universal dominance of utility must be negated. Everything cannot be reduced to utility. And today the individual cell appears even within science as a riddle. Within the organism, living cells in themselves are aggregate units, not simple units. So even when trying to reduce down to the cell, a greater riddle becomes unfolded. But basically, Otto tells us we begin by recognizing the element of astonishing energy. So we want to transform and take notice of the question of energy. That'll help us in our neo-vitalistic theory. So block 2, we're going to move from purpose to the question of energy. And science tells us there is no disappearance of energy, only transformation of energy into another form. Therefore, mechanical theory denies the possibility of any force from without. Mechanical theory denies any force from without. But Otto says through our own volition, through our own act of the will, we have the power of intervention within the chemical, physical universe. We can intervene through an act of the will. Even upon our own internal chemical, physical existence, we can intervene through our choices, and that power of intervention implies the existence of a without. A without of energy is a possibility. So if you take a look at note 2, force as without as a possibility. Religion posits the transcendental depth of appearance. This feature of life is derived and communicated in addition to internal molecular force. Otto goes on to say, could not mechanical movements also swing over into vital movements? And could not vital force be immanent? Is that not a possibility? So now we bring up the question of theories of force from without in Block 2, Note 3. He begins with Bunge, who posited the theory that the liberation of energies is a function by itself. It is a function Ocasio, a separate occasion. Neumeister posited the theory that psychical processes play a part in the function of protoplasm, and Morgan posited the following force theory. Force reveals itself as something outside the recognized order of nature. There is an ultimate reality that underlies the force manifestation, termed as neuronal cause, from the neurons in the brain. And Hertwig posited the following theory, that every primitive natural force is unique. Every primitive force is qualitatively distinct. So Otto tells us the scientific community itself is becoming aware of manifestations of energy that are outside the normally recognized order of nature. So the concept of purpose, the requirement of religious feeling, and the new notion of energy, those three, the idea of purpose, the requirement of religious feeling, and the notion of energy from without, those three force us into the religious conviction of forming a Neo-Vitalistic theory in Block 3. And we're going to begin with the empirical. We're going to begin with science. To take a look at this, we're going to begin with Driesch and New Ideas from Biology. His writings from 1891 to 1894. He stated that biology must function in coordination with physics, and that teleological must take its place alongside the causal. Life is a mechanism based on given structure, constantly modifying, constantly developing itself. However, this recognition is going to progressively grow with Driesch and his position. But initially he begins with this mechanism based on structure in Note 2. Ontogenesis is a causal nexus, but following a natural law that is enigmatical, fulfilling itself through liberations of energy, and the whole is decided by purpose. The causal and the teleological are two ways of looking at things. The living organism is a result of vital process. The primitive protoum must be extraordinarily intricate to secure its development. So now he moves on to considering this notion of vital process. So in 3.3, again we're still with Driesch, and he says living organism as a result of vital processes. Eventually Driesch abandoned mechanical theory, which binds phenomena to substance. The chromatin, where vital processes have their basis, is far from having mechanical structure. It is far from being perceived as mechanical structure. It is instead a homogeneous order, and it is a harmonious equipotential system. Each element has equal functional efficiency. So now, Driesch has progressed to Block 3, Note 4, harmonious equipotential system. And potentiality, each individual part bears within itself an equal degree of potentiality for the whole. Under the categorical, it is a mode of occurrence which is dynamically sui generis, a category unto itself, and under Dunamy's tendency, it is Aristotelian Dunamy's tendency potential. This supports autonomy of vital process for Driesch. Autonomy of vital process. So we moved from 3 Note 2, mechanism based on structure, to 3 Note 5, autonomy of vital process. We've gone from mechanism to vital process. Driesch's work on organic relations states that living organic processes are contrasted with physico-chemical phenomena. The living organism can help itself to attain its evolutionary aim. Epigenesis is not material-based. Teleology does play a factor in the chain of causes. So he says we have relationship. We now have relationship with that chain of causes. And he states that this does support Aristotle's entelechy, or the realization of potential theory. Then Otto wants us to take a look at Albrecht. He said that vital interpretation runs parallel to chemico-physical process. Each series is complete in itself. However, Otto says he did not address the causal and teleological relation. Schneider came along and did attribute to the psychical the explanation for the vital, considered Darwin's theory forced oversimplification, criticized mechanical theory. All of this movement in the realm of empirical science brings us to our religious outlook in Block 3, Note 8. Otto says there is a fresh recognition of the depth behind appearance, but entelechy for science remains a riddle, not yet constituted into knowledge. Physical processes are constantly subject to peculiar guidance. The incomprehensible lies behind the play of physical causes. In other words, we have empirical, scientific tendency toward the idea of purpose. Physical, scientific tendency toward the idea of external energy. Physical, empirical, scientific tendency toward a neo-vitalistic theory that opens the door for true religious outlook. A religious outlook that begins with the requirement of religious feeling. And that is precisely what we get in Chapter 9 here. And remember, we've been building up to this. We did pass through the level of negation, negating the theory of descent. We had the affirmation of evolution as a movement from dunamis to energia, and we have positive affirmations of what that movement from dunamis to energia means. It means specifically addressing the notion of purpose and an immanent energy or an immanent force that moves creation toward a teleological aim. And for Otto, it all has empirical evidence, not from the religious community, but from the scientific community. And so he wants to tell us that here in Chapter 9, and by the way, there are only 2 more lessons, there are only 2 more chapters, 10 and 11. So he's really coming to terms with the positive affirmation of Neo-Vitalistic theory. And notice how he brings it all back full circle to Aristotle, because he really does like Aristotle's notion of logos and hylos. He really does like Aristotle's notion of logos and hylos. And notice that he brings it all the way full circle back to Aristotle. So we're kind of looking at a Neo-Vitalistic theory that he wants to posit and a Neo-Aristotelian theory that he wants to posit. So it gives us very, very positive content for this new affirmation. We've looked at the negation of mechanical theory in the previous lesson we just finished. We looked at the beginning elements of Aristotle's vitality theory. Now we get further evidence from the scientific community itself to affirm a neo-vitalistic theory and the big requirement, the requirement of religious feeling to take up the religious outlook. The door is open, says Otto. That's going to wrap up Chapter 9, pages 220 to 278. Next lesson, we'll take a look at Chapter 10 in its entirety. And we only have 2 more chapters, 2 more lessons, and that'll wrap up our manuscript.